look at me like that. You knew this was coming. Maybe not today. Maybe not with this face. Maybe you thought I'd keep swallowing it forever. Keep smiling through it. Keep being the bigger person while everybody else got to be small. But you knew. Somewhere deep down, you knew. You cannot keep handing a man the role of the villain and then act surprised when one day he stops correcting you. That is what happened. I got tired of explaining that I was not the monster in every story you told about me. Tired of showing receipts. Tired of saying, no, that is not what happened. Tired of watching people edit the truth until I looked cruel for finally reacting to what they had been doing quietly for years. So I stopped. You want a villain? Fine. Now you have one. But understand something before you celebrate being right. I did not become this because darkness seduced me. I became this because goodness without boundaries almost buried me alive. There was a time I would have done anything to keep peace. Anything. I would bite my tongue until I tasted blood. I would apologize just to end the argument. I would take blame for things I did not do because I hated watching people I loved hurt, even when they were the ones hurting me. That was me. The man who thought kindness could fix anything. The man who kept giving people one more chance, because maybe this time they would understand what they were doing. Maybe this time the apology would be real. Maybe this time the promise would survive longer than 3 days. Maybe this time love would look like love. I believed in maybe for too long. Maybe is a dangerous word when you are trying to survive people who benefit from your hope. They learned that about me. They learned I could be talked back into rooms I should have burned the key to. They learned I would forgive before the wound closed. They learned that if they cried hard enough, blamed their past, blamed their pain, blamed the timing, blamed the world, I would somehow find a way to blame myself too. And for a long time that worked. I was easy to control because I cared about being good. That is a sentence nobody warns you about. People think goodness makes you safe. Sometimes it makes you easy to manipulate. If you need to be seen as the good man, somebody can always threaten that image. They can call you selfish when you say no. Cold when you step back, arrogant when you stop chasing, heartless when you stop rescuing people from consequences they created. And if you are still desperate to prove you are good, you will run back. You will explain. You will soften. You will open the door. You will hand them the weapon again and call it forgiveness. I did that. More times than I want to admit. Not because I was stupid. Because I believed love meant endurance. I thought loyalty meant staying after the room stopped being safe. I thought strength meant taking the hit and not changing. I thought becoming harder would mean they won. So I stayed soft. And they kept testing how much softness could survive. That is the thing people never say. The villain is rarely born in the moment he becomes dangerous. He is built in the years he was harmless to everyone except himself. He is built in every dinner where he sat quiet after being disrespected. Every phone call where he listened to someone lie and decided not to embarrass them with the truth. Every night he stared at the ceiling replaying what happened, wondering if he was crazy because the people around him had gotten so good at making him doubt his own memory. He is built slowly. No thunder. No black smoke. No dramatic music. Just a man learning that every time he chooses himself, somebody who profited from his self-abandonment calls him worse. At first that bothered me. God, it bothered me. I wanted them to understand. I wanted the people who knew my heart to stand up and say, no, he is not like that. But some of them stayed quiet. Some joined in. Some enjoyed the story because my silence gave them room to write whatever ending made them feel innocent. That hurt worse than the original betrayal. Not being attacked, being misrepresented. There is something about watching somebody injure you and then tell the room they are bleeding. That changes the chemistry in your blood.
Alias Maximus!
You begin to understand why quiet men sometimes leave without saying goodbye. There comes a point where explaining yourself becomes humiliation, where you realize anyone who really wanted the truth would have asked. Anyone who loved you would have noticed the pattern. Anyone who respected you would not need a public trial to believe your private pain. So I stopped presenting evidence, and that is when I became the villain. Not when I screamed. I did not scream. Not when I threatened. I did not threaten. I became the villain when I stopped defending myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. Funny, isn't it? How quickly your silence becomes guilt when people are addicted to your explanation. How quickly your peace looks sinister to someone who expected you to panic. They kept waiting for me to run back and fix the story. I did not. They kept throwing little accusations over the fence, hoping I would climb over. I did not. They kept telling each other I was angry. I wasn't. Anger burns hot. What I felt was colder. Disappointment after it has finished hurting. The kind that does not shout because it has finally accepted what it sees. That is where the old me started dying. And I do mean dying. I do not say that like some dramatic line for effect. I mean there were habits inside me that had to die. The reflex to answer immediately. Dead. The need to be liked by people I did not even respect. Dead. The habit of turning someone else's bad behavior into my personal homework assignment. Dead. The belief that everybody deserves unlimited access to me because we have history. Dead. History. What a trap that word can be. We have history. So what? People say that like years automatically make something sacred. Years can also make a prison familiar. Years can make disrespect feel normal. Years can teach you to confuse survival with love. I stopped worshiping history. I started studying patterns. That made me colder, more precise, not cruel, precise. There is a difference. Cruelty enjoys the wound. Precision knows where the boundary goes. I learned to say no without writing an essay. I learned to let a message sit unanswered. I learned not to explain why disrespect changed the relationship. I learned to watch somebody show me exactly who they are and resist the old urge to edit the scene. No, leave it ugly. Leave it honest. Let the truth stand there with no makeup on. That is what they hated most. I stopped helping them hide from themselves, and suddenly I was difficult. I was toxic. I had changed. Yes, I had. What did you expect me to do? Keep bleeding politely? Keep letting people confuse access with entitlement? Keep pretending there was nothing wrong because the truth made everybody uncomfortable? No. Comfort had already cost me too much. I paid with sleep, with focus, with confidence, with years. I paid by becoming a stranger to myself. I paid by walking into rooms already preparing to make myself easier to digest, less intense, less honest, less direct, less alive. You ever notice what happens when a strong person spends too long around people who are threatened by strength? He starts rounding off his own edges, laughs softer, speaks less, questions his instincts, apologizes for taking up space. Then one day he wakes up and realizes the people asking him to be smaller never planned on becoming bigger. That realization changed me. I stopped shrinking. And because I stopped shrinking, everything that only fit around the smaller version of me started breaking. Relationships, friendships, expectations, old identities. Good. Let them break. Some things only survive because you are betraying yourself to hold them together. That is not loyalty. That is self-destruction with a noble name.
Can you please just give me something?
And I was done giving beautiful names to ugly things. Control became concern. Disrespect became honesty. Neglect became being busy. Manipulation became miscommunication. Cowardice became needing time. Number. Say the real word. There is freedom in using the real word. Because once you name something accurately, it gets harder to keep living inside it. They called me a villain because I started naming things correctly. Because I stopped taking bad behavior and translating it into language gentle enough for everybody to avoid responsibility. Because I stopped asking, what did I do to make them do this? And started asking, why am I still standing here? That question saved me. Why am I still here? Why am I still here? Why am I still here? With somebody who benefits from not understanding. Why am I chasing people who become affectionate only when they feel me leaving? Why am I explaining my value to people who only notice it when they lose access? Why am I begging for respect in rooms where disrespect is part of the furniture? Why? And the answer was ugly. Because I was afraid. Not of them. Of being alone. Of starting over. Of becoming the bad guy in somebody else's story. That last one had me chained. I wanted to leave without being hated. I wanted boundaries without consequences. I wanted to choose myself and somehow make sure nobody felt rejected by it. Impossible. There are people who will call you evil for refusing to continue a version of the relationship that was killing you. Let them. That was the day I understood the freedom hidden inside the word villain. If protecting myself makes me the villain in a story that required my suffering to keep the hero comfortable,
I see all this potential, and I see it squandered.
then write me dark, write me cold, write me with black ink. Just spell my name right. I am done editing myself for people who never edited their behavior for me. That does not mean I became reckless. This is the part people misunderstand. They hear villain and imagine chaos. No, chaos is emotional. I became controlled. That is worse for people who were used to controlling me. I stopped reacting on command. Stopped taking every insult personally. Stopped treating every accusation like a summons to court. You say I am selfish. Maybe. I have been selfless enough to know where that road goes when there are no boundaries. You say I changed. Obviously. A man would have to be asleep to go through all of that and return unchanged. You say I am not the person you knew. Correct. You knew a man who had not yet learned the price of giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. You knew a man who thought people always meant well. You knew a man who could be guilted back into his own cage. He is not here. Stop calling his name. I buried him with respect. He was not weak. I need to say that. He was not weak. He was brave enough to love before he knew what love could cost. He was loyal enough to stay after most people would have left. He believed in people past the point of evidence. There was something beautiful about him, and something dangerous, because beauty without defense gets harvested. That is what happened. People picked pieces from him until he was standing there confused about why he felt empty. So I buried the version that gave without measure, not the heart, the access. I kept the heart. I changed the lock. There is poetry in that. People think becoming dark means losing your heart. Sometimes it means finally learning where to keep it. Not on the table. Not in everybody's hands. Not in rooms where tenderness is treated like weakness. Mine lives behind discipline now. Behind observation. Behind time. You do not get it because you asked. You start moving like a man who knows loss cannot erase him. That changed everything for me. Before, I negotiated with disrespect because I was afraid of the ending. Now I know endings. I know how quiet they are. How one day the phone stops ringing and somehow the sun still comes up. How the chair across from you stays empty and after enough mornings you stop checking it. How a name can once control your heartbeat and later become just a name. I know endings. They do not scare me like they used to. So threats do not work the same. If you keep acting like this, I am done. Okay. That word is dangerous when a man has finally made peace with consequence. Okay. No speech, no chase, no panic. Okay. There is a villain in that word if you were used to him begging. I know, but do not confuse calm with malice. I am not trying to ruin anyone. I do not wake up thinking about revenge. Revenge still lets the past choose your schedule. I have work to do, a life to build, a body to strengthen, a mind to protect, money to make, promises to myself that have already been postponed long enough. Why would I spend another year proving something to people who already took too many? No, my revenge is unavailable. My revenge is sleep. My revenge is discipline. My revenge is no longer checking if they noticed. My revenge is becoming so honest with myself that nobody can sell me the old lie twice. That is darker than rage. Rage still wants a response. This does not. This is the villain who does not need to destroy the kingdom. He just walks out of it, and the kingdom discovers how much of its light was coming from him. They wanted me to be angry. They wanted a villain. Maybe because villains are easier to blame than consequences. If I am the villain, nobody has to ask what happened before I changed. Nobody has to ask why the patient man stopped waiting. Why the loyal man stopped returning. Why the gentle man stopped explaining. He's just bitter. Easy. He's arrogant now. Easy. Success changed him.
Easy. Anything except the dangerous question. What did we do to him? Do not ask that if you are not ready for the answer, because the answer is not one event. It is accumulation.
1,000 cuts, 1,000 little moments where I learned my pain mattered less than somebody else's comfort. 1,000 times being told I was overreacting to something they would have called unforgivable if it happened to them. 1,000 times choosing peace for the room and war inside myself. That bill came due, and the man paying it does not look like the man who signed it. Here I am, the villain, but not theirs. Mine. I use the word differently now. Villain does not mean cruel. It means I stopped trying to be the hero in stories designed to exhaust me. It means I can disappoint people and survive. It means I can walk away before I am destroyed. And that is what the villain became in the end. Not a man obsessed with destroying people. A man who finally stopped losing himself. That is who I am now. So if you came here looking for the old me, I cannot help you. If you came for endless chances, wrong door. If you came because you heard I am doing better, and suddenly remembered my value, keep the memory. If you came to apologize, I may listen. If you came expecting access because you apologized, that is a different conversation. Forgiveness is not a key. Regret is not a reservation. History is not ownership. And love is not a lifetime exemption from consequences. Those are the rules now. Simple, clear, cold enough to survive heat. They wanted a villain because the good man was too difficult to control once he started waking up. So they named the awakening darkness. They called the boundary cruelty. They called the silence arrogance. They called the distance revenge. They called self-respect ego, and for a while I almost believed them. Not anymore. I know what I am. I am the consequence of every time I was told to keep the peace while somebody else kept the knife. I am the answer to every night I promised myself. One day I will stop doing this to me. I am that day. Not perfect. Not invincible. Not emotionless. Just awake. And an awake man is terrifying to anyone whose power depended on his confusion. That is why they are nervous now. Not because I am coming for them. Because I am no longer coming back. That is the part they never prepared for. They prepared for anger. They prepared for arguments. They prepared for another cycle. They did not prepare for the door to close quietly. They did not prepare for me to stop asking to be understood. They did not prepare for the man who once feared losing everyone to finally choose losing anyone who requires him to lose himself. So yes, they wanted a villain. Now they have one. But he is not the villain from their story. He is the villain from mine. The one who finally walks into the chapter, looks at the man who keeps sacrificing himself for people who would never do the same, and says enough. Enough explaining. Enough bleeding. Enough proving. Enough shrinking. Enough begging rooms to make space for a soul that was never meant to live on its knees. Stand up. Take your name back. Take your time back. Take your silence back. Take your future back. And if they need to call you dark because the light they knew was burning you alive, let them. If they need to call you cold because you stopped being fuel for their fire, let them. If they need to call you selfish because you finally included yourself in the list of people worth protecting, let them. Let them have the word. You keep the life. That is the trade. And I would make it again. Every time. Because I know now. The scariest thing I ever became was not a monster. Not a soldier. Not a villain. It was a man who no longer needed permission to leave. A man who could love and still walk. A man who could be hated and still sleep. A man who could be misunderstood and still know his own name. That man cannot be controlled the old way. That man is free. So write your story. Make me the villain. Tell them I changed. Tell them I became difficult. Tell them I stopped caring. You can even say you never knew me. Maybe you did not. Maybe neither did I. But I know me now, and that is enough. They wanted a villain. Now they have one. And the only thing dangerous about him is this. He will never betray himself again.